Hey guys, happy Thursday. I hope you guys are having a great Thursday so far, a great week. And yeah, thank you for joining me. Thanks for listening. Thanks for pressing play. I appreciate all of you guys. I am so excited to do this session or this tea time relating to starting over. I didn't do it last week, but I'm doing it today. And sometimes on my polls, not on my polls, sometimes on my stories, I'll ask people like, hey, what would you like to listen to during my tea times? I'm pretty sure you guys have seen it. And sometimes it's like a blank, answer your own thing. And sometimes I have two specific things and I ask you guys to just pick one to vote, basically. And a while ago, I had somebody, one of my friends, ask, is it okay to start over? Can you basically talk about this during your tea time? So yeah, I want to talk about it, and thank you for those who voted last week on just some of the questions that I had about this concept of starting over, and I also asked to share some of your own wisdom, and yeah, thank you for sharing your guys' own wisdom on just starting over. And it's so interesting because I've always said this, like, sometimes these tea times are kind of back life coaching or talks to myself because I might be in that space soon where I'm starting over in a way. Hey, how are you? Okay, I can't comment, or I can, but it's gonna take a lot of work. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. There's like a huge time difference, right? Where you're tuning in from? I'm good. How are you? I should emphasize the good. I'm good. How are you? I'm doing pretty good too. I got somewhat like good news yesterday, but I'm not ready to share that yet. I'm going to make a cup of tea right now. Woohoo! It's 8 p.m. here right now. Okay. Where are you at again? I have coffee, by the way. No tea today, but I'm still drinking something. I had this idea of doing like wine Wednesdays because I love wine. I'm not going to, but just an idea. So yeah, starting over. What is this concept of starting over? First of all, like, is it okay? And the answer to that is fuck yeah, it's totally okay. The UK, that's right. Yeah. So, is it okay to start over? Fuck yeah, it is. It totally is. I had people vote if it was okay or not, and more than 30 people ended up voting yes. Like, of course it's okay to start over, and what is this concept of like starting over, right? It's like starting fresh, and what are some examples? You should. I love some red wine. I'll join you for sure. I'll let you know if I do that. That'd be fun, huh? 10 minutes of red wine or whatever. Wine Wednesdays. But yeah, so what are some examples of starting over, right? I had some people share how changing friend circles was starting over, how being in the dating scene is starting over, how moving to a different city or different state is starting over. What other examples did people share? Going back to school, changing majors, having a breakup and being in that space where, yeah, in that space of being single after a long time is starting over. Healing from addiction as well. Hey, Carla. So starting over, Carla, is it okay to start over? I'm talking about some examples. So yeah, some people shared that, and basically like a fresh start. And it's so interesting because I'm going to share my perspective of starting over, and in my perspective, we're not starting over from complete scratch. And somebody actually shared this in one of the, again, like the polls that I shared on my story, how in my perspective, like, we're not really starting over from scratch. We're starting over from the experiences or the learning lessons or the healing that we just had, if we choose to heal or to take that path of personal growth and maybe spiritual growth. So in my perspective, we're not completely, again, starting over. We're starting over from that experience or from that lesson itself. Starting over is necessary for growth. Yeah. Yeah, and I also, like, another perspective that I have as well is that we're always starting over. Every decade, every year, every week is different for all of us. Like, we all have different paths. We all have different seasons in our lives. We all, like, we're just all in different areas in our journeys, and starting over is just part of it every single time. And I think we have this, like, idea that at a certain age or a certain point in our lives, we're supposed to have it all together, and this whole concept of starting over doesn't even exist. And I feel like this concept of starting over is actually part of life. And something that always pops up is, like, being in our 20s is something new for everybody. Being in our 30s is new for everybody. When we hit the older age of, like, 40, 50, 60, that's still a new decade in our lives, and wherever we're at, like, we're gonna be in that space of starting over again in whatever area in some way. But again, from my perspective, like, I don't think we're starting over from scratch. I think we're just starting over from our experience. But yeah, even so, I shared some examples of, like, starting over, and I wanted to share, like, what are some feelings, right, that arise in that space of starting over. And again, like, I shared 4 different feelings, and people voted that being doubtful and being excited was, or those two actually a lot of people voted for. And it makes sense, right? Being doubtful, this starting over, sometimes it's a space of just entering uncertainty or the unknown. So there is going to be a lot of doubt. Again, whether it's changing a major, whether it's having a breakup and being in that being single again. Again, like, moving, healing from addiction or healing from something, it's still that space of the unknown. So we're going to be doubtful. And again, like I mentioned earlier, like, it's so interesting because whenever I share a tea time, I'm sharing and then the words are kind of, like, back to me in a way. So I'm in that space where I might be starting something new and there's doubt, but there's also a lot of excitement with it. So yeah, so I don't know if you guys want to share something with this concept of starting over. Cheers, I'm having some coffee. So yeah, again, it is okay to start over. And hey, Sabrina! How are you? Oh, thanks for showing up. How are you doing? So Sabrina, do you have any words of wisdom to share about starting over, or what you would share to somebody in that space that's starting over? Or just anything, really. Sabrina said, totally 100% okay to start over. Yeah. Carla said, we can call it evolving. Yeah, I like that better, evolving. We are forever evolving. I like that. Evolving. But yeah, so from experience, I think inherently, I'm thinking of, like, sharing a personal experience, and I think inherently I have this perspective where I'm not really starting over. It's just part of life where there's change and there's growth, and it's always, like, this personal development or spiritual growth at the same time. But there was a little bit of that actually when I came back from Vietnam, and one of the reasons why I felt that way was because I was looking too much of the outside of what was going on with, old classmates, and how they had gone back and they had been finishing school, and it seemed like people around me were, like, settling down. And there was, like, a glimpse or a moment where I'm like, oh, it feels like I'm starting over. And immediately it just kind of passed through where it's like, wait, like I'm not starting over. Like I'm like, what do I want? It went back to what do I want to do now that I'm in this space of being back in the States. And the whole life coaching was brought up, and me doing my own research with life coaching, and again, my own work, some other stuff arose. But yeah, I didn't really feel like it was starting over, but I do remember having a little bit of that glance of that feeling, and feeling a little bit kind of like there is some kind of what's that word, attachment with the word starting over with the idea, where it's like bad, or where it could mean like you're fucking up, or what was that other stuff that I put on there? I totally didn't write it down, but I remember I asked people what they feel like it meant, and yeah, like it has so many negative stigmas with, again, like I fucked up, or like I messed up, same thing, right? And it doesn't mean that at all. It totally doesn't mean that at all. And Carla, like what she was saying, like we're evolving and we're not going backwards at all, even though it might feel like that. If anything, we're starting from that space and we keep moving forward. Sabrina said, every day is a new opportunity to start a new. It's all a learning experience. Yeah. Which reminds me, like even when was it, like a couple of days ago, maybe it was like 2 days ago, I went back to my routine, and I haven't done it in like a week. And I could have been in that space of, okay, like I'm starting over, but it felt more like, okay, today's the day that I'm gonna work out, or I'm gonna go back to my practice, and it's alright. So every day is a new day, and every day is a new opportunity, and it's all a learning experience, fucking for sure. So yeah, something too, like, that I want to share with us is, like, I had this example of, like, when we're reading books, and sometimes, like, we'll read a book, and we'll read all the way to, like, chapter 5, and then sometimes we'll just leave the book, like, we just get busy, or we just stop reading for whatever reason, and weeks go by, or months go by, and sometimes we go back and pick up the book, and we start over, right, from the first chapter, and I was thinking, like, oh, we're not really starting over and reading the book. Like, we've read it up to chapter 5, so we know somewhat of what it's about, or we already have our own thoughts of it, or our own realizations, or whatever it is. And when we were going back to reading it from chapter 1, we're starting from maybe already having some kind of feeling or thought with it. So in a sense, it's like not really starting over. So Carla said, it's still sometimes scary too. Yeah. Hey. So why do you guys think that it's scary, or that it's exciting, or that it's doubtful? Hopefully that book example makes sense. But I was thinking about that last week. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like reading a book. Like, we're not really starting from scratch. We're starting from where we left off already with another, or a viewpoint. If that makes sense. Sometimes they make sense, a lot of sense in my head. But yeah, so if you guys have anything that you guys would love to share, comment below. Yeah, this can also go in so many different ways, but I just really wanted to come on here and share that, like, how it is okay to start over. And again, like, how we all have different paths, different journeys, same thing. We all have different seasons in our lives, and starting over is just part of life. And again, we're evolving. Like, yeah, it's part of life, evolving. Ooh, I thought my camera was about to fall. Carla mentioned, because it's new, unknown, and our minds feel safe in being able to predict the future. Yeah. Feel safe being able to predict the future. And also wanting to control the future. It feels like if we lose that sense of control, or if we don't have a vision of what the future looks like, then it is, and I can totally vouch for that, it is scary. totally is scary. She said, it feels safe when we know. That's why we spend so much time gathering information from science to news to perspectives. Yeah. And I can vouch for that too. That's something that I did when I was letting go of religion, trying to gather information in a way before I officially let it go. But yeah, a lot of it too is like, I feel like it goes back to just going with your gut and listening to your intuition. Because I think these little things, right, like the whole changing majors, like moving to a different city or to a different state, changing friend circles, like all these things that are in a way feeling like we're starting over. It's an intuitive gut feeling, and I feel like it's arising for a reason. Maybe for, again, like our own evolution, our own growth, our own practice. Hey, cousin. Yeah, and it does feel safe to gather as much information as we can before we decide to make the choice. I'm so pondering. I can say so much about intuition. Like, I want to share some more stuff about that. Sometimes our intuition is so strong, and sometimes we feel like we can't follow it either because we don't have information. But that's like a whole other tea time, I think. But yeah, if it feels comfortable, gather as much information as you can. And I think a lot of it too is valid, like especially when it comes to like moving or changing a new major, is gathering that information of how you can make the transition, because it does feel more comfortable. But yeah, so anything else you guys would like to share? I wanted to share what people wrote, what people, like their own wisdom. So let me know if you guys have any other comments or questions. Okay, so I asked a question in my stories for people to basically share their own wisdom of what they would share to others who are in that space of starting over. And I'm going to share that right now. So thank you again for sharing your guys' wisdom. I really, really appreciate it. And it made me more excited to do this tea time and to share these words. So, and then, again, they're going to be anonymous, so I'm not going to say names. But here we go. So take a deep breath, pick up yourself, dust yourself off. It's okay to start over. Another one, take every moment moving forward, day by day, or even if that's hard, hour by hour. Another one, have courage and don't give a fuck about what others think. Fuck yeah. Do what makes you happy. Thank you. Another one, it's worth it, and be kind to yourself through the tough parts. Okay, here's another one. Learn your lessons. And this is another one that I really resonated with, in which I just shared. You're not starting over from scratch. You're starting over from experience. And then another one. Don't be afraid to start over. Even on days when they're good or bad, a prayer will work. Here's another one. God is good. Be positive, strong, and go forward. And here's another one. It always feels scary at first, but the universe has a way of always helping you out. Yeah. Yeah, and that's very true too. When you accept that when you accept that whatever it is that you're starting over, when you accept it and when you step into it, yeah, it might be scary. It might be super space in that, or being in that space of like being doubtful. It might be challenging, there might be some pain, but the universe will have your back. And I feel that in that space, everything is a learning experience, I feel, but part of it too, I think it's like honoring that space of the challenge, and again, just showing up for yourself and remembering, I think, like your intention with why you're there, right? So if it's changing a major, if it's healing from a certain thing, if it's moving, if it's like a breakup, whatever it is, remembering the intention. And I think that helps a lot. That totally helps a lot. Yeah. So anything else you guys would like to share? So I might end this with a quote. But let me know if you guys want to share anything else. My friend Carla and I were talking yesterday about intuition. So earlier I was like thinking about our conversation and all of my experiences with like listening to my intuition and information. Okay, so I'm gonna end this with a quote by Sharon Salzberg. I believe I said her last name right. And this is from her book. What book is it? I think it's Real Happiness. Yeah. Okay, so this is the quote. So we can always begin again, no matter what happens, no matter how long it's been, no matter how far from our aspirations we may have strayed, we can always begin again. So yeah, so it's never too late to begin again and to start again. And just remember that we're evolving, we're growing, and it's okay to start over. So yeah, much love, guys. Thank you guys for joining.